Shooting is a pivotal element of 10th edition. So we're going to take some time today to go over what we think are the best options to supplement your wall. So it's time to bring more Dakka to the wall for the boys. We all know that the combat phase is the one phase that we all look forward to as Ork players, right? And sometimes it's easy to neglect the shooting phase for some of you particular golf boys, scar boys. But we need to understand that 40K itself is a resource management game in itself, right? Just like in war is about logistics. And one of the things we have access to is the entire phase of shooting. So neglecting it, in most cases, is going to be a bad cause. It's going to be a bad idea, right? Now, I'll be the first to admit that some of you squig hide boys out there with your squigs and your feel no pains and your trucks, you'll go out there and say, no, I can run it through. I understand that. There's some exceptions to the rule, right? But in a vast majority of the game of 40K, shooting is important, right? So that being said, even though you're hitting on 5, we do have options for shooting, as well as while we're on the subject of shooting, on how grenades are to be utilized in the shooting phase, right? So we'll be talking about grenades as well. So some of our shooting options and our grenade options, some of the combinations that we're going to be going into, how can they be beneficial for you as an Ork player, and about roughly how many points I think you should be adding to your Ork list, right? So David, any chance or anything you want to say before we start ranting on the wall?
Yeah, we got our Big Mac Brandon showing up in the chat.
Whoa.
He's saying he's painting his last 3 hogs while watching this. Whoa.
Oh, there we go. Hog boys.
Artemis Steve here too. Here, guys.
Haha, Artemis Steve. Whoa. Sorry, guys. I don't know if I'm wanting too much. I'm a little pumped up.
Yeah, we can continue on.
All right, here we go. All right, guys. So, like I said, for Ork players, some of you guys making some of these lists with no shooting at all, but between what we've seen when we're going into our Meta Wednesdays and what we've seen when we talk on Discord and other channels and people talk about Orks, a lot of the most powerful Ork lists are coming out here with some guns, right, David? Coming out here with some ability to shoot. So that being said, we're going to start with what's just out. Are you going to hold the data sheet? We're going to start with the first data sheet that we wanted to talk about, and that's going to not surprise anybody in the flash kits, right? There, everybody was kind of looking at them in the beginning of the index release and was going, is this real, you guys? Can we really use it? Is this bait? And then Adrian on Tabletop Titans used them, and then he was like, it's bait, they still suck, right? And then everybody was like, no, they really do still suck. But in reality, no, Adrian just had some bad rolls, as he always does. And I'm not sure if he had Captain Badrock, right? But that's another thing you might want to do. So you can, when you take a note of this, David, so we can talk about it. But that, so one of the things that people are doing as a whole is they're bringing a 10-man unit, they're sticking them in a truck, they're taking a mech in there, they're putting Captain Badrock in there, and they're driving around the battlefield using it as a mobile gun platform, as you can understand, right, David? As anybody can understand. So what you have to do is that when the mech, when you pull up his mech, actually pull up the mech data sheet, the mech actually gives an ability where you can give +1 to the vehicle. Therefore, if the flash kits are in the vehicle and the mech boy buffs the vehicle, and I'll let David read the enhancement ability himself, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, at the end of your movement phase, you can select one friendly Ork vehicle within 3 inches of this model. That vehicle, heals. The part that we're talking about is adding 1 to the hit roll each time it makes an attack.
And what's important is it's at the end of your movement phase, guys. That means after you've disembarked. Therefore, as you look right above, he also has lone operative, which when he's within 3 inches of that said vehicle. Therefore, he's getting out, putting on his little scope and binoculars for there, and he's like, all right, guys, shoot through this little targeting squig. Because that's what's happening, is everybody's now getting +1 to hit from inside the vehicle because the vehicle's getting +1 to hit, right? I know it doesn't exactly work like that, but it's easier for you guys to understand because they're getting the fact that they're moving around and they're hitting on 5s naturally. They're not going to get heavy, and they're in the vehicle, so they're not really going to get any additional abilities that would be on their data sheet, right, as in actual abilities, because when you're in the vehicle, you don't get access. So you still want them to be kind of useful before you expose them to be counterfired, right? Now, what happens when you're going to use them again? Well, when you are ready to disembark them, and we can go to Captain Badrock, that's where Captain Badrock and the Flash gets ability comes into their own war gear abilities come into play, right? So, David, you want to read Captain Badrock's ability for
Flashy is while this model is leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes a range attack, you can re-roll the hit roll.
So let's move right over to Flash gets with that in mind. Keep it in mind. He's giving them the re-roll to hit. When they disembark, guys, remember, keep in mind, you cannot use your abilities when you're in the vehicle like that, right? The vehicle is pretty much just taking over your guns, and all you get is the vehicle's your guns abilities themselves. So keep that in mind. You're re-rolling hits. Now, what's important about that is Snaz guns have sustained hits 1. meaning just like when we punch, they're the only guns that in regularity that give you +1 explosion hits, right? When you get that, you get an additional hit on there. So you're re-rolling the hit roll, boom, as well as the Flash gets ability, and then you can read their war gear ability as well, David. Because remember, you're throttling on the turn they get out, guys. As a whole, as we're looking right here, they're really not that durable. They're about equivalent to a knob, which is a thick boy, which we know a thick boy's nice, but a thick boy ain't holding up to a lot of things in the game right now, right? So I like Flash gears, and they are thick. They're cool to little 4 attacks in combat. That's pretty awesome. People overlook that a lot. Strength 5 for a melee attacks, right? That's more than your average orc boy, but that's not what we're looking at. What we're looking at is their ability when their guns show off crazy and their war gear options. So David, if you want to read that.
All right, gun crazy show off. Each time a model in this unit targets the closest eligible target with its snaz gun until the end of the phase, that weapon has an attacks characteristic of 4.
Boom. Remember, re-rolling the hit roll.
Keep with going. The sustain hits 1. That's it.
And then you also.
And then you got the ammo run. Once per battle, when this unit is selected to shoot, it can use this ability. If it does until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit have lethal hit. So you can punch up with this.
Punching up, you're re-rolling the hit rolls, you're getting more hits, making up for your lack of ballistic skill, right? And the thing here, guys, is we always talk about as orc players to keep in mind is volume solves problems. Just putting the wound dice in your opponent's hand and saying, here you go. That's what you want to be doing in this game as a whole when you're thinking as an orc player, right? We understand that sometimes we do go into our premium power claws and such, but as a whole, you see a lot of people utilizing other ways to get into combat, getting in with that -1 AP, and you see that's why they love Squig Hog boys as well, because they're -1 AP only, but they come in there with volume, and that's what the Flash Gets are doing at range. We've been seeing these guys come out, become very prevalent in tournament lists, in casual play. So as a whole, what's the reason? What are we looking at? What are some units that you would think, hey, I really want to use these into, right? One data sheet they really do well into is the Neurothropes, right? Neurothropes are really good at just sniping out their brain las cannon guns. And for you as an orc player to sit there and allow something like that to just shoot at you freely in the open lanes with all your vehicles and not get any clapback for what it's trying to do is unreasonable and not very gawky of you or mawky. You understand? Because you need to be able to put damage on people and get their respect when you're moving around the battlefield, not let them throw screens in front of you off freely at will, even though this isn't great for clearing screens since they are damaged too, right? But if you get some enemy counter charges going on, the truck being able to move quickly, right? Cutting that angle with the 24-inch guns, giving the mech, remember, you have the mech there. Mech's going to give that truck +1 hit. You're going to be hitting on 4s with these good strength, good damage guns, guys. Remember, it's very easy for us to overlook the damage too because we're hitting on 5s. Do not overlook that, guys. When you have enough dice in your hands, you're solving enough problems. That's how you start solving problems, right? I understand you can roll bad sometimes, but as a whole, don't ignore the shooting phase just because in your head you can't understand that this is not reliable. That's not the point. The point is it's another tool in your toolbox as a player in 40K to solve problems that your opponent starts to possess. If they know you can only play in one phase of the game, you look like a towel player, but the other direction. They pretty much know exactly what you're going to do. Like, okay, all you can do is move, and then you can charge into my screen. Okay, or I can just put my gun shooting unit right here in the open, right in the perfect line of sight to 2 different objectives, and he never has to respect me. That you can't, as someone who's trying to control your rate of attrition, you can't do that. And that's why we're trying to point out you want to have shooting. So that being said, there are other shooting combos that I'm sure you guys want to hear. And let's not forget about grenades. We'll be keep talking about that, but keep that in the back of your head, right? So after Flash Gets, the mech gun, Captain Badrock, the mech, you're looking at it, you're like, that's a pretty expensive combo. Let's go look at individual units. So after that, we'll talk about everybody's favorite buggy from 9th edition, the Rucker Truck Squig Buggy. So Dave, you want to read some of its data sheet real quick for everybody?
Yeah, so the ranged weapons, squid launch.
Oh, you can read the data sheet because the data sheet has some good abilities itself.
Squig launch blast, ignores cover, and it's indirect.
Okay, well, I'm ignoring your cover, and even though it gives you +1 armor save, you're on your cover. Haha. Okay, yeah, sorry. GW is okay, sorry. Okay, continue. My bad.
It's got great range at 36 inches, D6 +6 shots.
Okay, it's trying to make up for the fact that it used to have another gun that's back, guys. If you look on your model, there's 2 of those little guns, so I understand. It didn't give us a twin link, but okay, they tried to give us more shots, right? I like +6, even though D6 can go either way.
And it's hitting on 5s, strength 5, -1 AP, 2 damage.
But is it hitting on 5s?
No. Just the buzz of squig. Each time this model makes an attack with squig launches that targets infantry unit, add 1 to the hit roll.
Yep, and most of these gunline units, these units that are used as gunline units, like Devastator Marines, or maybe your opponent's countercharging units, like some Zerkers or some 8-bound, maybe some Gene Stealers. We're just throwing everything. Guys, we know what the meta is. We just don't want to be repeating what everybody knows is trying to charge them. Gene Stealers. But the point is that you have this buff gives you the slight, instead of paying for the mech, having them fall around a buggy. No, the buggy isn't, because remember, the buggy is only, this one is a bit more expensive. I understand 110 points. But the buggy itself in every game is going to give you a different ability, a utility, right? You can look at it and say, this thing has a giant base. You know what? In this matchup, maybe I'm not going to get my points in regression for returning. I mean, my points return for shooting. I'm going to utilize its OC, its speed, and its big base to block out some monsters since I'm not going to be able to hurt them. Or it can be, hey, I'm going to take out some enemy barb gaunts that are just sitting over there and just looking like they want to play too pretty. I'm just going to packer them up and then walk up to the objective with my 3 OC, force the enemy maybe to come give me, or I'm going to throw mortal wounds at them, right? The fact that it's fast, like we keep talking about, yes, our guns are unreliable, but if here's a trend we're starting to pick up, our guns are kind of fast and they're kind of cutting angles, and this one's indirect. So whenever you're playing 40K, guys, you can't just think black and white, this is the damage of this, here's going to come into play. You have to think when the battlefield's unfolding and someone's looking at you and they're trying to utilize the terrain, they're trying to utilize your movement, they're trying to utilize the weaknesses of your base compared to their bases of their models. Having something that's going to ignore line of sight and shoot is something that other armies wish they had. And then being able to move 12 inches and do that with a 36-inch gun, right? So I know you're not, I'm not going to just annihilate that unit. You're not. But when we're talking about controlling a rate of fire, sometimes you got to poke hole in that enemy's gun lines so you can kind of wither their firepower down so that you can withstand their firepower, okay? Because the chances are the enemy might end up killing this instead of your truck. And then that truck will deliver your knobs, right? Or your beast snagger boys when on the wall to get somewhere. So this is the way you're thinking about it. It's not that you even want to always keep this guy alive. In some matchups, you might just say, hey, I'm letting you kill this instead of my truck. So in a whole guy, we're letting it, guys, let it be seen that yes, we know that it's not going to directly get its return in points, but that's not always the point. Sometimes you got to poke those units down that are going to give you problems later in the game for your more durable units, and maybe get his mortal wounds off if you can with the squig mines. Hope that maybe you can pull tank shock. He still has a strength 7 and it's a kind of non-reliable fighting, but he's trying, right? And that's how I utilize orcs. Like I said, 40K is a resource management game, just like the game of war itself is a logistical battle. And therefore, utilizing all the phases, utilizing a complete data sheet throughout is how you become a better player as a whole. Okay? And so this is one of those ways you're going to be doing with shooting. Now, let's move on to someone that one of the data sheets people might not be accustomed to talking about right now. Ludas it is. Boom, Ludas. Okay, before you start throwing your teeth at me because you're so happy I talked about Ludas. No, I'm just kidding. If anything, you're throwing your choppers at me trying to crack my head for talking about something. But here's what it's in reality, right, guys? 48-inch range on those def guns. 55 points for the 5 guys. I understand you're like, okay, there's only 10 more points than a grot for a unit of boys. In most cases, they're not. Now, you're not punching, you're not doing that, but the durability of the boys. And the range that most other enemy armies, David, as you know, like you talk about some of your gunline armies, are they going to appreciate someone that's 48 inches with strength 8? And then if you are putting them on a terrain piece, which that's the whole idea behind Ludas, if you play on a terrain, right? Remember, guys, this is all based off the terrain you have at your home and whatever you're playing. If you're playing somewhere that you can get the high ground, get that additional P for that withering fire ability that they have now in 40K, where you get on above 6 inches and you get an additional AP on your gun. That's a strength 8 -2 damage gun. What? You can't just scoff at that just because the math says something. If you haven't not played 40K, you spike that, you're re-rolling ones, and then they're on an objective, and the fact that you have 48 inches, you're mixing this up with something like a buggy. That's the whole idea of what we're thinking here, guys. You're compounding it, and you're putting them in different parts of the battlefield. You can even go up to a big unit of 110 points for that. Does the enemy even want to shoot this really in reality? With what? The guns that can reach them are idealistically the same guns they want to use against vehicles. How many people really have long-range anti-infantry firepower other than maybe indirect guns, right? So if you have that, if that's the case, they have a lot of other things you're going to have to worry about in your battlefield as a whole. It's okay if they kill your little cheap Ludas, right? So Ludas. Now, David, you want to read their ability? If people are not, I know you're still not convinced out there, guys, but read their abilities.
Yes, our loot. Each time this model makes a range attack, reroll hit roll 1, and if that attack targets a unit within range of an objective marker, you can reroll the hit roll instead.
Interesting. So would it be wise to maybe include one of our interesting Big Macs?
A guy just for the job.
Oh, maybe they need some leaders. Let's see. Boom, with the Big Mac with the shock attack gun. Why is that? Because what is yours is mine, you get. So their ability would translate onto him with his gun because he's a part of their unit, right? So let's take a moment to give some love to the Big Mac with the shock attack gun. Now, he already has the innate more Dakka, so he already gets rerolls of 1. We understand that. But he's a nice way to induce battle shock. Now, some people are like, oh, battle shock. Okay, I get it. But some people out there are saying, I like battle shock. And maybe I use Def Dreads. I hate to break it to you. Def Dreads are not a good gun platform. They will not be on this list, in my opinion. But that being said, it's an easier way with this to initiate battle shock instead of you trying to get into combat with the Death Dread and getting it only once in the game, if getting it at all, right? So you do get their War Gear ability, right, David?
Consistent once per battle. After rolling to determine how many shots the bear's shock attack gun makes, you can re-roll that dice.
So I do like to put that ability, because what I'm going to go on to next, guys, is I'm just throwing it out there so you can understand what the loot is. I do know that D6 is unreliable. I just wanted to give this gun a shout out because it has a magnificent -4 AP. He does have heavy, so he will get +1. So when he's hanging out with the looters, their whole idea is to hold down a lane at long range. And he'll be getting the full reroll to hit, hopefully, if there's an objective, which comes into great utility when you get to reroll his War Gear, the amount of shots one time, right? That one turn you finally are on the objective, you're going to be like, I'm going to reroll, hey, here, guys, here we go. Or the amount of shots, excuse me. And then you already know you're going to get +1 to hit, possibly rerolling hits if they're on the objective, because that's the whole point of the loot. These are what I'm talking about when you're compounding your resources trying to shoot guys, okay? It's not always just linear of I'm just going to do this, even though this is a bit more of a expensive package, and I personally favor just bringing more looters. I just wanted to throw this out there because it's a fun combo that people wanted to see, and I just wanted to bring everybody's attention. Though I will admit, I am not a fan of random amounts of shots or random damage. So if that's not your cup of tea, I understand it, but it's still one of our better gun profiles and one of our only HQs that's really good for shooting. So do one quick look at looters again, and just in case we forgot to mention, looters are heavy and they are rapid fire 1. I understand their ballistic skill is a huge turn off, but they are only 55 points, which is only 10 points more than a Grawl. And the fact that the rapid fire means they actually get 3 shots at 24 inches, which makes them extremely worth it at their points at that point, because start rolling the dice yourself and you'll see. So from that being said, and give it some try. Give it some. Remember, you always got Overwatch too, guys. Keep that in mind too. 48 in range. Somebody's trying to walk, and if you got the CP for it, no, I'm gonna Overwatch these guys. I really don't like that unit. I really don't want when they're about to counter charge me. I get a couple of those models down because I know they're gonna turn into my Squig Hog boys. Let me try to kill a couple of them, especially if you know they're gonna end up on the objective, like I always said. Keep that in mind. And after that, we're gonna move on. Just speaking of grots, how about a mech gun? Boom, boom. David, can you read the ability? Because I like when you read it.
Blah. Each time a model in this unit makes a range attack, that target a unit of 10 or more models, reroll hit roll 1.
Okay, the first time I brought up mech guns, that's the first thing David read. I don't know why on the data sheet. I was talking about the gun. I was like, dang, look at that strength 12. David's like, splat from the side of my. I'm like, what? I'm like, where? What are you talking about?
I just imagine.
I mean, yeah, splat. I mean, especially the smash gun, right? So there you go. All right. So regardless of a splat, okay, not great. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. Honestly, not great. But what is great is a custom Mega Blaster profile. Okay, I know some of you green tunes are like, hazardous. I'm definitely taking that gun. And some of you guys are like, if you're new to orcs, should I? You should. I know the smasher gun, it's pretty great because it's reliable with the damage 3, but the D3 shots is just gonna hurt your feelings most of the time. Tractor cannon, if you really want to take a go at that because you're meta for some reason, go ahead. And like I said before, I'm not a fan of random, right? Not to that extent. We already are up against it with our shooting. I don't need to put more variables and odds up against me, right? Yeah. Well, I was talking about with the bubble chucker, and then, because what you have to do is you have to roll for which profile you're gonna use. So that's what I mean. Is like, it's not that I don't think they're all bad profiles or that you like wouldn't find a case for them, but the idea is you're bringing that gun to do what it wants to do when it does shoot. And if you roll a 1 to 2 and you're trying to kill a tank, you'd be like, oh, I really am shooting bubbles at you. So so that's what I'm saying. I just would bring the custom Mega Blaster. Overall, when people are bringing these, they're bringing them as individual models, and they're just bringing the custom Mega Blaster. They're taking the risk of the hazardous to pretty much trade the damage of what these guys can potentially put into these really high toughness models that are out there, right? So for the most part, when people do bring mech guns, they bring them individually and not as the big units, and they do just bring anywhere from 1 individual, I've seen sometimes, but usually about 3 individual ones. And so mech guns, I haven't really seen any leader abilities, David. Nobody's really putting a character with them. Like I said, they're running them as individuals. If you want to change my mind, go ahead and then show me in the Discord, or I'll find you on an RTT result when you do great.
If you're really concerned about the hazardous, which I don't think you should, because this model has 6 wounds, so it's definitely going to survive a turn if you do roll that one. But a mech can heal it if you do decide to.
But if I was a mech, I wouldn't, though. If I was a mech, I wouldn't. We get them grots blow up. So yeah, but it's an option, of course. If it's too early in the game, you're like, ooh. So yeah, just wanted to say that. Now, mech guns, though, most people understand what the point is. If you got the points for them, if you plan a terrain that you can set up that line of sight, maybe you went looters and a mech gun, you're just confusing people. They're like, what do I shoot here? That could be a thing. I don't know, but people have been bringing a couple of mech guns, especially if you, and it does translate into some good damage into these really high toughness. Strength 12 is nothing to scoff at because we lack as a whole. Okay. So that being said, right, those are more of my favorite units, guys. And we're talking about just direct damage output. What I just went over with the flash kits, with the Captain Badrock, the mech, and the truck combo. Then when they get out of the truck, they go crazy. I have seen people thinking about outflanking them in small 5-man units. I haven't put them to play yet, so I can't give you feedback. But just in the back of your mind, if you think that's the way you want to get them on the field, that way you can attempt it. But for the most part, put them in trucks, pay for that package so you have reliable output. Next thing, the rocket truck squig buggies. We've seen people bring in two or three of them. Like I said, you're acting like they're maybe a thicker bike unit just running out. Sometimes I'll steal an OC. Sometimes I'll shoot at somebody and use them as a line of sight that's out of line of sight or direct line of sight so I can do reliable damage into them. That's the flexibility of that vehicle, right? In the matchup, you might not have the greatest targets from. In another one, you might have the best targets from because you're getting blasted every turn. So that's why you bring him.
You got Storm Boys on the list. Squig buggies are great for clearing little areas, pockets, so your Storm Boys can land like screening unit type units in the back. Yeah,
reduce those gaunts when you're annoyed by them. Like, never mind, you guys. And then the unit that I was kind of favoring was the Ludus, right? Like I said, Ludus. The big mech with the shock attack gun, don't really have to, but if you want to, you can do him. Ludus are for the Overwatch and the fact that they're a cheap package. Mech guns, really good into anti-armor, anti-vehicles. Now, these are the kind of these are going to be the second lower tier units we're going to talk about now. They're not as great and reliable as shooting, but they can still serve other purposes, right? For the fact that they exist on the list, but they still fall under a shooting category, right? Yeah. Right? Dakka. So the next thing is burner boys. So burner boys, they're a pretty cheap package for what they bring. Being able to auto hit kind of bypasses our abilities that we suck, that we can't hit anything. And David, you want to read their Pyromaniac?
Pyromaniac. Each time a model in this unit makes attack with the burner that targets an enemy unit within 6 inches, reroll wound roll 1. And if that enemy is within range of objective marker, reroll the wound roll instead.
Ooh, there we go. Now, before I rant more about him, do you want to maybe hit a chat or something? Because I feel like I've been ranting. Yes, when I just get them flowing, guys, they're just there going, and you see I start grabbing the mic, I'm ready to. Okay, but sorry, I'm excited, and yeah, I mean, I'm definitely adding more shooting to my list, and I think a lot of people on Discord have been too.
Yeah, we got Austin Hatfield in the chat. Whoa, Orcs for the win.
Always win, never beaten.
And Brandon saying, I'm happy to see y'all highlighted mech. Such a great model and an extra tool to play the late game.
Hey, I want a different voice for mech. I'm glad y'all talked about the mech. Guess I'm gonna pretend you talk, Brandon. All right.
Cammy, whoa, starting to build my orc army tomorrow. Truck, Beast Boss, and Snaggers will be delivered in the morning to join the bits I've already got.
Oh, there you go. You're coming in how in the Beast Snaggers in the truck. You're like, I know we play casually, but I shall bring the meta. That's okay. Get crumping. Talking about new things, I've been enjoying the Combat Patrol, talking about little new stuff. So that's that's that. When you said new to making your orcs, I thought about that.
All right, we got Al. Whoa, I'm very excited for this video. Love the work, guys. We'll watch this video a lot. Thanks for the love.
I appreciate you very much. Get crumping. Which I don't want to rant.
Our big mech again. Squig buggies are great for picking up small units trying to hold objectives.
For sure, right? Start taking off the enemy's shaft. If you don't got that many units, well, I'm gonna start picking them down, making them nothing. And that combat by almost like a association, right? I mean, the shooting by association, right? You got a rocket here, you got some big shooters on your truck here, you got some indirects here, you got some looters here. All of a sudden, that counter-punching unit has lost 2 or 3 models, and that guy's looking like, dang, am I gonna be able to punch out those Squig Hog boys now? Yeah. So really, that's kind of how orcs work. You're not really thinking, I'm gonna go here and my unit's gonna annihilate you. It's like, if you have enough units that kind of put some supplementary fire into you, you start to end up withering away enemies' key units before they even make contact in a way they weren't expecting.
Putting pressure with bullets.
More Dakka.
All right, Gatsu, mech guns worth it? How many would you run?
I think, like I said, it's really your terrain, right? And the terrain I play with the little GW setup, I almost have no like reliable line of sights, and if I do, I'm like clogging up one of my moving lanes. So I end up don't using mech guns for that reason. But if it was like player plays terrain, and I knew I could set up mech guns, and I knew maybe some other people were gonna bring some some tank platforms, and I really wanted to bring mech guns to kind of counter them because they're gonna be stationary and easy targets, then maybe I'd bring them. And if I did, I'd bring 3.
Joel Atkins. Whoa. Yeah, bosses. And we also got Mark Bruce. Whoa.
The Bruce. I think we have. We're also going over some hobby pictures later, guys, after this stream. And I think Bruce, one of I'm definitely going to be looking at some of your pictures, just so you know.
Is that your profile?
That's my Magnus. That's my Magnus. Just kidding. All
right. He also says, I've got 8 of those mini tanks from Temu to make into grot.
Oh, you sneaky grit. You sneaky grot. No, I was kidding. No, I was going to say sneaky git. But no, that's a great idea, actually. I've seen those. videos and I seen the pictures, those work really well. They're like little plastic like truck tanks. I seen that. I didn't mention to like reply on Discord because I was on the toilet, but it was great.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, I believe Temu is that one shopping app that has got a lot of great deals in general. I didn't even think to look for Warhammer stuff on there. Good eye, Mark.
Let's go.
Then you got Aiden Marquez. Lads, how would you get kit out of Ludas? I feel like 6.5+ to hit is just rough.
It is rough, but do not move. Stand still in the firing lane. Like I said, if your terrain doesn't allow for that, then don't. But for 55 points and at that range, my friend, most people, now there's some units and some armies that are like, yeah, I got firepower for that. As a whole, people just don't bring that. They don't, and then if they do, they don't want to spend it on a 55 point unit. Remember, like I said, it's shooting by association with orcs in more cases than not. Now there are the flash kits where you can throttle and go hard, but it's more like your Rucker Truck Squig Buddy is looted, Squiggy Buggy is getting help to buy your small looter unit most likely because you're not trying to overcommit the shooting either. You're trying to spend less than 500 but more than 200 points on your shooting, somewhere around there, right? If you're trying to add a couple units to your list, and that's why looters are kind of easy to add because instead of just having absolutely none, maybe you had like 10 points go over, you put the grots and you still have those points embedded GW app. You're like, okay, well, put looters then. You know, that's more or less what I'm saying. But if you have like a screening problem, say you play against Eldar and Elves, then you go to Burner Boys. So really it's about what's in your meta. If you're getting charged a lot by maybe some World Eaters, some Marines, maybe 2 Moon models, maybe other orcs or whatever, you can end up using looters in a weird way with that strength 8 guys. And when it does get up to -2, and mind you, you're not just hitting on 5s. You are re-rolling 1s, and then if they aren't objective, you're getting a full re-roll, my friend. And that's without you contributing anything. So I know the ballistic skill is hard because I overlooked it too. If you go to videos from a month ago, I was like, I don't know. And then I started rolling it. Then I started putting into some of the little matches passively. And I was like, man, I'm putting away some of the, and people don't want to shoot it. They're like, I want to kill those boys that are directly in front of me, not the boys that are 46 inches away. You know what I mean? Like for the most part, people start picking apart what's coming at you. So, but if they have, you know, maybe like a bunch of impulsors and then they have a lot of small arms fire and they move up and they're like, I got big shooters for you. Then okay, in that case, maybe not in your meta, but give them a try if you want just a little additional firepower. Don't be scared. Well, I'm not saying you are because you're a green skin. So yeah, is that caught up on the chats then? Okay, cool, awesome. Thank you, chats. I appreciate you guys. And I like to rant, so sorry if I do. Now as for the Burner Boys, I know they're not ideally a shooting unit. But they do provide that screen clearing, like I said, for something like an Eldar, somebody that wants to be -1 to hit. And personally, I would put the rocket launcher on my Spanner Boy before people ask me. That's just what I would do. Okay, and yeah, and they're a small unit. Put them in a truck with maybe some of the small unit of knobs. That's how I would more or less use them. But they're not exactly shooting. But I just want to throw them out there. The next unit, it's some somewhat underrated shooting, Killer Can. So when people ask me, would you rather choose a Death Dread with multiple rockets or a unit of Killicans, I just go to Killican. Okay, you're not paying the additional points for the mech to give it to the Death Dread because if the Death Dread's just running around hitting on 5s, it's definitely not worth it, right? But you can pay the points equivalent for the more wounds and the possible ability to, David, their ability if you want to read it.
Shooty Power Trip. Each time a unit selected to shoot, you can roll 1d6. On a 1, the nearest other friendly orcs unit within 12 and visible to this unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 2 up until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit have the ignores cover.
Ignores cover. Exactly. And that's something the Death Dread just doesn't have. So yeah, you might hurt your own unit. Very orky. Don't care. Blew them up a little bit. In reality, you're delivering some reliable rocket launchers at that rate because now you're hitting on 4s. I understand their strength is not ideal, but when you're getting to it's essentially -3 AP now in the meta with how easy cover is to get. You're kind of moving up into that -3 territory for flat damage tree. And like I spoke about before, sometimes these expensive, maybe kind of durable or pricey premium countercharging units that want to come into you, they're going to hate being hit with damage 3. I promise you, right? If any of you guys know, you've seen a Beaky lose a Terminator, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So it's just, David's like, yeah, actually, not you said it. And it's associated fire because like I said, it's not that you're necessarily just picking this unit to shoot. You're picking this unit because it's beefy, it has spread out wounds everywhere, it's slightly durable, fitting your theme, it's gonna have great armor saves, it has a flat damage string in combat. That's why I said it's not necessarily just shooting, but there's a unit in your mind where I said, remember, you're not just committing to just shooting our units, you're picking units that are viable in shooting in multi phases of the game that bring both of that for that compounding force multiplier, right? Where you're gonna be adding combined arms, and that's how you really win out as a whole in 40K. If it wasn't the case, then Todd wouldn't suck. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, sorry guys, I'm just joking. So okay, yeah, you're right. No, sorry, I'm just trying to. Why am I trying to be politically correct? Yeah, I don't care. I'm sorry, because it's how players. If you play Todd, I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying I don't love your faction. So yeah, so killer cans. Just in my opinion, we're talking about shooting as a whole, I know, but in your head, you're gonna pick the flash gets, and I'm not gonna say like, all right, now add more just guns to your. No, I'm gonna say now think about other units that will assist, still put some firepower down, but still do the orky thing and get stuck in, right? So that's what I mean. Why we're presenting some of these other units now. Another unit, and I don't think David, did you bring these to the shock? Yeah, you did. Oh, okay. So this, okay, don't yell at me. I know this is great for shooting. It's not great for shooting. It's not great for shooting. I just wanted to bring it up that other people don't know all the time that we suck at shooting, okay? And you can scare people as an orc player when you tell them, I have precision, ballistic skill 2, because we're going to pretend that you're giving yourself +1 to hit from the mech that might be on your list, from the flash kits or whatever, right? You tell someone, I can snipe out your character, your 3-wound character, your 4-wound character. That's hilarious, and it might get people to kind of make themselves out of position, right? In reality, this unit's not going to help you too much with firepower, but it is going to help you in the case of mortals, and it's going to help you in the case of board control and positioning and shooting. And getting in those firing lanes that you are going to want, or the positions of the corners of the board you're going to want. Now, like I said, we're going to talk about grenades. That's why I wanted to mention mortals, because this is all going to come full circle, this conversation, guys. We're going to talk about from the beginning to the end. It's all makes sense to each. So Shock Jump Dragsta, it still has the ability to do the tank shock strap. And it's kind of going to scare people if you start adding that mech, telling people I can possibly snipe out your little weenie character, and get people to act wrong. Not great at shooting, though. I'm just going to say that right now. It's just sometimes you can get the opponent to overthink for themselves. And this is one of those units that even if they don't overthink, they still score for you. So it's fine. Just want to throw it out there, though, because it's not getting love sometimes. Next one is something that I love, so I might be biased here, but is it the Mega? Oh, we didn't do it? Mega Track Scrapjet? No. Oh, oops. Okay, well, real quick, pretty much falls in the same category as this. Mega Track Scrapjet. If you happen to have a mech there, his guns might be good. In reality, he's just trying to put mortals, and I just like to throw him out there as if associative kind of model right there, right? So, and why do I bring up mortal wounds when we're talking about shooting? And that's because we could just go. And that's because I wanted to talk about the grenade strat now, David.
In your shooting phase, one grenades unit from your army that is not within engagement range of any enemy units and has not been selected to shoot this phase. Select one enemy unit that is not within engagement range of any units from your army and is within 8 inches and visible to your grenades unit. Roll 66 for every 4 up. That's 1 mortal wound.
Oh, and like I want to say the last part of that targeting sentence is, and has not been selected to shoot this phase. So any of these units that I'm about to go over and mention, guys, that have the grenade keyword, I just figured I might as well pull up a couple units. When I mean couple, I mean all of them, that have grenade keyword into their data sheet. Know that you're going to do this first, and then you're going to shoot it. So right off the bat, it's going to be funny. War bikers, death copters, boys. We don't have images for this, guys. You can just not believe me and then check your apps. That'll be fun. War bikers, death copters, boys, storm boys, knobs, squig hog boys, commandos, and snick rot. And the Big Mac with the custom force field, and the Warboss. I forgot to look at the index, guys. Not the index, though. Forge World, so maybe they do too. But the point is, these are all units, for example, that can start compounding mortals with the rest of them to throw this as well into the army, into the conversation, because it acts almost as shooting, considering these are the units that are going to be coming forward in your army, almost running into the screens, or are going to get close to the models that are going to be wanting to shoot at anyway. For example, Squig Hog Boys. I actually think you did bring those up, right? Did you have them or no? Okay, the Squig Hog Boys, you guys, are one of those model units that has grenades, but they also have squig bombs. There's squig bombs. Oh, isn't that the whole thing? Oh, okay. That means, and in the squig bombs are now, guys, I know you guys are like, well, they're shooting. In 9th edition, they were shooting. In 10th edition, the squig bombs come out in the movement phase. Oh, David's gonna pull it up right now. So, David, sorry, you can read it. Oh, bomb squig.
Bomb squig. Once per battle, each bomb squig in this that this unit has, after the unit ends a normal move, you can select one enemy unit within 12 inches and roll 1d6. On a 2-up, the enemy suffers D3 mortal wound.
So now we'll say you'll just put maybe 5 mortal wounds into someone now. before you charge in with the Squig Hog Boy unit.
More activity.
That's what I'm saying, guys, is then, okay, and then you shoot that unit, maybe with the Ludus, maybe with your indirect. What just happened? That guy didn't even think he was going to be killed in the shooting phase. Now you've just deleted 8 elite mortal wounds worth of, elite wounds worth of a model of a unit. This is the way you want to be thinking as an Ork person, you guys, right? As an Ork player is what I'm trying to show you guys. It's not necessarily, I have this Devastator unit, +1, re-rolling, exploding 6s. Yeah. That's not how we play. We them boys. So everybody's taking shots at the same target before they run up to it, right? So everything's taking a chip off that guy when you're shooting at them. You don't want to think just that unit is killing you. It's like I said, Squig Hog Boys lined up to that unit that's coming down the lane. That unit walked into the line of sight so they can shoot at the Squig Hog Boys. Now the looters have returned fire and shot at them. Squig Hog Boys threw bombs into them. Then they threw grenades into them. All of a sudden, you shot the unit that's behind the unit that you're going to charge into, and they weren't even expecting it. Then they lost half their unit. This is the way you want to be thinking. And that wasn't even an expensive combo of shooting. That was 1 CP, Squig Hog Boys plus looters. All of a sudden, you killed a couple models, right? And I'm not going to, here's the mathematically. Roll it out. And just that's what my point, though. This is how you want to start thinking as a player. And like I said, for one more go around, war bikers do this. Death Copters don't use Death Copters. Boys, as in standard boys. Beast Snacker boys don't do this. Storm boys, knobs, Squig Hog Riders, commandos, Snickra, and the Warboss on foot.
Depending on the situation, this also helps you with your durability. If you further weaken that unit, and on the clapback, they're not able to fully handle what you have in their face, you're there for another round of combat.
Yeah, that's really the idea behind of why you add just some firepower, why you add more Dakka to your list. Because if you're already trying to be durable, I see some smart people that are going into these mechanized lists with the kill tanks. They're like, hey, I need some guns. They're bringing the Squig Hog Riders, and they're like, hey, I need some flash kits, right? So if you're paying attention to the meta as a whole, you'll see that this is something that a lot of the competitive scene is bringing. So that can validate it, whether you want to go based off the math hammer, you want to go based off the win rates, you want to go based off, just roll it at home at yourself. The point is, consider your terrain, consider your matchup, and then consider the models you have at your disposal as well. If your theme is just straight Squig Hog Boys, you don't want to bring any shooting, okay, that's fine. You made a list based off that. I'm not telling you how to play 40K. I'm just telling you this is something that can help be used as a tool, another way of thinking, especially once we start getting more rules for